All right. Hey, y'all. Hey, welcome back to Truth, Trust, and Trajectory with your girl, Shakim B. Today, I am blessed and honored to be inviting Amanda Reece on for an interview. Amanda is a wellness focused initiate. Oh my God. Let me introduce, let me let her introduce. I always butcher this. Come on up here, girl. Introduce yourself to the audience.
You were
I
hilarious. Oh my
tried it.
goodness.
I tried. She's like, "Ooh."
I'm like, how do you introduce somebody that just does like a charcuterie of different things, right? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, you're fine. Okay, let me introduce myself. I am Amanda Reece. My company is called AmandaFesting, and I am proudly uterus free. And I tell people, and it's because I'm uterus free, is because I manifested that uterus right out of me. I'm all about making wellness really accessible, which is why I'm really happy that I can pair with organizations like the Women's Center of Halton. It's in Ontario in Canada. And I get to offer free workshops to women that really need it. So
I love
that's what I
that.
get to do.
I
And that's who I
absolutely.
am.
Well, thank you for making time today and doing this interview. I was really excited with our initial conversation, and I was just like, wow. So I constructed a bunch of questions for you.
Okay.
The first one that I wanted to ask you is, can you share a pivotal moment in your life that shaped who you are today?
Yeah. So, I mean, we have all been through so many different seasons of life. And the big pivotal moment that shifted for me was I used to have a very sedentary, I used to have a very painful life. I couldn't stand for more than 5 minutes at a time back then. And I lived a life full of like, I don't know, things that I could do that would bring joy to my life. Not those times it was I was a heavy smoker, I was a drinker, all of those things. And I think like the moment when life started to change for me was just about 5 years ago. I made the decision to stop smoking. And when I made that decision for myself, it was like choosing a whole new life and like possibilities of what it could look like. But a lot of stuff still need to happen. So that was like pivot fact number one. And then the next part that happened was um, when I really wanted a hysterectomy really badly. And my doctors wouldn't give that to me. And eventually, what happened was that cervical cancer developed. And I was finally able to get the hysterectomy I wanted. And when I got the hysterectomy, not only did they clear out the cancer, but they also found out that I had stage 4 endometriosis.
Oh my goodness.
So I was able to like this big pivot in my life. I was able to like stand without pain. And I still remember what it was like to do that. So the last 2, 3 years have just been this whole path of discovery for me of like learning what my body can do instead of that narrative that I used to tell myself of like what my body couldn't do.
Mm,
So I'd say those two pivots. I was like, one was choosing a different life from stopping the smoking, and then cancer showed up in my life as the next big pivot in my life to make some really amazing changes.
wow. And you're cancer free now, I assume, right?
I
Amazing.
am. I know. I actually got the call on I got the call on December 31st, like New Year's Eve, literally just a few weeks ago. And it was my cancer clinic calling and saying that I could transfer my file over to my gynecologist, that everything was good. All of the pap smears and things that have happened over the last few years now, they're like, you're good. You're out of here. You're done. So
Wow.
I'm officially have transitioned from cancer survivor to cancer thriver. And
Amazing.
I'm really, really happy and full of gratitude to just be here. It's freaking amazing.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that for you, and I'm so happy that you're like that you were able to beat those odds because that's amazing. So I just want to really quickly like what the hysterectomy. Can you just kind of go over like what the circumstances were behind that? And also like I don't know if you're like want to talk about like the location in that because we had talked about that initially and
Mhm.
did
Yep.
not.
Uh, so like, okay, so hysterectomy, like how this happened for years. I'm gonna get deep here. I'm gonna just
Yeah.
go for it and just tell people like what was going on. I share a lot on social media now, so people are aware of these things and like how this kind of happened for me. But for over a decade, I didn't date, I didn't have sex, I didn't do any of these things. Sex was super painful for me back then. Like I didn't like it, I didn't understand it. I was really judgmental about sex. But I never understood, like I never told people like that it hurt me a lot to have sex. Like it was really painful. It didn't feel good.
Yeah.
And so I never, had sex. I was like watching all my friends have kids, and I'm like, I'm not having children. Like I just knew parenting was not something for me. I was like, I'm good, thanks. And plus, like I couldn't even hold a child, like without needing to sit down, like having that extra weight on me. I was like, how would I ever parent? So I would watch my friends with kids and like I would just be exhausted. I'm like, how are you doing all these things? Because I just need to like sit my ass down right now. I can't be doing this stuff.
Mm,
Um, so I asked my doctor years ago for a hysterectomy, and I was in my early 30s, and she was like, "There's no way that that's going to happen because you're so young." I got that classic messaging: "You're going to
mm,
change your mind if you want children, and what's going to happen if you change your mind? Then that's like on us for going through with this." And I remember being furious back then about
mm,
them saying that, and then uh, I just, you know, I stopped advocating for myself. And I
mm,
just accepted that life was supposed to be painful and I was just going to be sitting on the couch for my whole life and comfortable. And I had a very small world. Like that's all I knew. If I traveled, my idea of traveling back then was, and I like, I, it was fun back then still, but my idea of traveling was going to an all-inclusive resort where I could just get wasted and smoke the entire time. Like that's all I wanted to do. Like, and I never wanted to leave the resort. I didn't want to see anything else. I just wanted to be at the pool, float because it was so comfortable being in the pool
yeah.
and I wanted to drink. So for years, like nothing was happening. And then I made that pivot. Let's stop smoking, which was huge in my life because anyone that knows me knows that I love smoking. Like I was so good at it. But my
Mm,
body was like, you need to be done with this. Like it was not good for me. And with the hysterectomy piece, um, a family member actually ended up having an issue and I'm not going to go into their personal journey because that's theirs to kind of share and their story. But what happened with me, my journey was my doctor was like, let's get you off the birth control pill
mm,
because, you're older, sure, you stopped smoking, but like we just want to minimize any impacts from using the birth control pill. So when that happened, my periods got even worse than they were before that. They were bad before and like horrible before, but they got even worse.
mm,
So I started going back to my doctor and I was like, what's wrong? Like, let's like, I'm this isn't normal. This is not my normal of like what's going on. And she's like, well, let's maybe get you back on the birth control pill or a different lower estrogen level to see if that will help. And that helped for a very small amount of time, but then the periods got even worse. And I
mm,
remember logging them on my calendar because I couldn't believe what was happening. Like I bled all the way from September to December every single day, like no relief, no nothing. And during this time, like I'm like freaking with my doctor and I'm like, what is going on here? Why isn't this stopping? And they sent me for ultrasounds. And at first they were like, it could be fibroids and this could be the source of your pain. And so I got a lot of messaging about fibroids. And then it still wasn't helping, the pill and everything wasn't working. So their suggestion to me was that I should get an IUD in. And I was like, can't you just get this freaking uterus out of me? I want it out. It's out of me. I want it freaking gone yesterday. And they were like, no, 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 you're too young. You're going to change your mind about wanting to have kids. The same, bullshit story that I heard all of those years. Oh, somebody's talking. I was like, oh, okay. I was frustrated with my healthcare team because they weren't going to give me this hysterectomy. And I just kept thinking, how do I get this uterus out of me? Like, how do I get this out of me? I want it out. I don't want to have kids. I'm done with it. I'm done with bleeding. I'm done with all of this stuff. And what ended up happening was I went to a gynecologist and he put an IUD in me. And I had to pay for this IUD. This wasn't cut, like I didn't have benefits or anything like that. So I had to pay for it out of pocket. And this is a male gynecologist, and one of the male gynecologists still that also was telling me that, I changed my mind and want to have children. And as he was inserting the IUD into me, it was probably the most painful experience of my life to date. Even any of the surgery stuff or anything, this was actual pain that I remember when I was present for. And he shamed me for making me feel bad that this was he was like, this isn't that bad. The pain shouldn't be that bad. She was pretty much calling me a wuss. And I'm like, do you have a vagina? What's happening here? How is this actually going on? Right. And I'm in tears, but I'm also like, are you kidding me right now? You're saying this isn't that bad. This is awful.
Right.
And so I got the damn IUD put in and I come home, and for the 2 weeks after that, I just kept envisioning this uterus still coming out. Cause I'm like, I am so done with this. I don't want to be wearing it. I could feel the IUD in me. I could feel it. And I know this is really graphic, but this is how my mind was working. I was like, if I just kind of insert my fingers in, can I pull it out and will everything just come out with me? If it's ripping a Band-Aid.
Yeah. It's just, yeah.
Just rip it. It's gonna be fine. I'm like, I've seen those Saw movies. I'm like, I can do this. I was gearing myself up to this. I'm like, I can do this.
Right.
Obviously I couldn't, but I was thinking I can do this. Yeah, everything's gonna be fine. They'll just go to the hospital after I do this and they'll figure it out. And in that 2 weeks went by and my doctor called me back, my family doctor, and she says, you need to go back to the gynecologist because your pap smear results have come back abnormal. And the reason that test result came back so delayed was because of the pandemic. Everything was delayed back then with all these results. So I go back to the gynecologist that I don't like because A, he wouldn't give me the hysterectomy. B, he told me I would change my mind about having kids. And C, he was pretty much calling me a wuss for having an IUD inserted into me.
Right.
I didn't like this person. Didn't think he was a great human by any means. And I made that known to him. I was not nice to him at all. And so I go back for coloscopy, and it's where they have to take a biopsy of your cervix. And so he's spraying me with this vinegar kind of solution, and he's got to take a little biopsy of my cervix. And as my I'm on the table, we all know what that time of the year is. It's not I remember my cousin always saying, if we were ever having a bad day, she was like, well, it could be worse. We could be getting a pap smear, because that was the ultimate bad day. Yeah. So already I'm having a bad day because this bleeding is not getting better. I have this IUD in that I don't want, and I'm getting a pap smear done by a man that I genuinely do not like and respect. Yeah. And so I'm in a vulnerable position. My legs are open. He's up there doing his clamping thing and microscope. And as my legs are open and I'm in that vulnerable spot, he says, that looks like cancer. And I'm like, did that just happen? Like, did he just say cancer? Like, did he just tell me I have cancer?
Right.
And so 100 million fucking things go through your mind when that happens. And that wasn't the best spot to be told that I had cancer, number one. So what happened after that was weeks of waiting for like test results, weeks again. I was supposed to go for a cone procedure because I was like, well, if I have cancer, just give me the hysterectomy, like just get rid of everything. I wanted that anyway.
Right.
And he's like, you're going to have to go for a cone procedure because we need to see how far this cancer has spread. And I remember looking at him very clearly and I said, this cancer is spreading because I'm getting my uterus out of me. Like, that's all I cared about was like getting my uterus out.
Exactly.
And he's like, don't worry. He's like, we're going to do this cone procedure and we're going to put a band inside you on your cone so that way you can still have kids. And I'm like, what part about you don't understand, like, that I don't want kids, like, is not connecting for you? Like, right. I just had such a hard time with this doctor. I'm like, what's going on here? Like, that you don't understand that I don't want kids, to get rid of it. And I told him very clearly, I said, if I find out that you put a band in, we are going to have a serious legal problem on our hands.
Exactly. So, oh, is it glitching? What is going on? Are you still there? Okay. Amanda? All right, and we got a little bit of technical difficulties, guys. We're going to take a quick break. All right, guys, we're back.
I was like, just send you a message. I'm like, just a little cliffhanger from the universe there. Why not?
Yeah. Hush, pumpkin. Yes. Okay. I'm sorry. So,
No worries.
continue your story. We're talking about the legal repercussions that would occur if they put the cone in there.
Yeah. So I was like, I should follow up to see if they ever did put that band in, but it wouldn't have mattered if they had put the band in or not in my cervix, because as it happened, they were like, the cancer has spread. And so I remember this gynecologist calling me and saying, well, you've gotten the cancer has spread. So you are going to get the hysterectomy that you wanted, and you're going to have a radical hysterectomy. So at this point, I'm like terrified, because now it's like, now I've realized that I'm sure I'm getting my hysterectomy, but now I'm like, holy shit, I have cancer.
Yeah.
And it was like this mixed feeling of like, I'm gonna get a hysterectomy, and I want this, and I know I need this. I don't know why I need it or why I want it so badly, but I do. But now I'm also faced with, I have cancer, and it's cervical cancer, and this kind of cancer that I have is a very aggressive cancer. And so like the urgency on this, like from them, like just significantly for this. But with the timing of everything, like everything was so backed up with the pandemic and coming out of that, and as it should be, there was so many people that needed so many different things, as we do right now, right?
Yes.
And so I had that cone procedure in March of 2022, and my surgery for my hysterectomy didn't happen until June of 2022. So all of this like stuff leading up to it, I hadn't told anybody about cancer or any of it up until that cone procedure. And then I told 3 people in my life about it, because my doctor was pretty much like, hey, like, you actually have cancer. Like, you need to stop messing around here and tell people about this. Like, it's been a year. Like, let's start like figuring out what was going on with me. She's like, you need to have a support team in place. So I told 3 people for the cone procedure. And then it was like, all right, I need to start sharing this with other people in my life, because I'm going to be dipping out. Either like, I don't know what's going to happen from this. So it was like this like really like big sense of heaviness of telling people. And just, I remember back then, like I couldn't even say the word cancer. Like it
Yeah.
scared me so much to say that word. I was like, I don't know of any good examples of people from cancer. Cancer was always like this big devastating thing that happened in my family. And
Yes.
so it was tricky, right?
Yes.
Um, and so the people I reached out to, no worries.
I'm sorry. Yes, please. Sorry.
It's a busy time.
Yeah.
I like it. Okay, so yeah. So I started reaching out to, I don't know, like it was just so interesting who and how that all unfolded, because I did end up having humans, like as one does, and I was really grateful for people opening up to me about their journeys as well with cancer. And so it's like this really private and intimate thing that can happen, right? Like everybody goes through this very differently. And so I had started sharing with people, and I had made up my mind with my relationship with cancer, because I stress of not telling people and like what was going on. I was so overwhelmed with stress that this manifested into shingles in my body. And I was like, I need to get my mind straight about this and figure out where I am with this, because if I don't, this is how things are going to start to spiral. Things are going to spiral very quickly. And so I just focused on I'm getting the hysterectomy part. Like I just focused on that positive, and I'm like, I'm going to get this. This is going to be great. It's going to be amazing. And so that's that mindset I took with this. I wouldn't let anyone talk too serious about it. I wouldn't let any of those kind of conversations happen. I was choosing how this was going to go. And so even the day of my surgery, like my cousin came to pick me up, and she had like a goodbye uterus card for me. It was like filled with puns, like, it was hilarious. I loved it so much. And even the night before, the same cousin, like she came and picked me up, and we went for a walk on this pier in Hamilton. One of the things that like my oncology team had said to me was that you're going to have this hysterectomy, but like you need to walk like half an hour every single day, because that's going to help strengthen your body for this. Well, at that time, like I couldn't walk for more than 5 minutes at a time. Like I never knew how to walk and do those things. Like I couldn't even stand. So I did not do the walking that they wanted me to do because my body couldn't. I remember trying to, and I would go to this one spot in Hamilton, and it's right along the water, and it had benches like pretty much every few steps, right? So like I would walk a little bit and I'd sit down because the pressure on my back felt like my insides were going to come out. Like it was just wild. So I've got some sinusy things happening here. And my cousin and I went for a walk, and I could barely make it around this pier, and it hurt so badly to do this, but I was trying. And so the morning of my surgery, I went with my cousin to the hospital, and I was met by a new oncologist, somebody I had never met before, didn't have a rapport with. And this new oncologist, I'm already in gown, and I'm meeting this new oncologist, and she wants to change my surgery plan. And the plan that I had with the other surgeon was that I wanted everything gone, because I had done all this. My idea of research was being on like the Facebook groups and listening to other people's stories that had gone through cervical cancer. And I'm like, I want everything gone. Like I was supposed to have a radical hysterectomy, but they wanted me to keep my ovaries. And I wanted my ovaries gone too. Because I was like, I just want everything gone. I don't need them. I'm not ever having kids. Like, I don't care. I don't want the ovaries. I want those gone too. And the oncologist back then was like, I highly advise against this. Like your ovaries do so many good things for you, but this is your plan, and I'm going to do what you want me to do. If that's really what you want, then we'll do that. So the day of my surgery, I meet this new oncologist, and I'm in gown, and I'm about to go in for the surgery, and I'm nervous, but I'm trying to like be okay with it. And this new oncologist is like, I don't agree with this plan about removing your ovaries. And she convinced me under duress to keep these ovaries. And so I agreed to it, and I was like, I'm not going to fight you. I don't have the energy to do that. I'm about to go into surgery. So do what you want to do. And she's like, well, how about we'll test your lymph nodes during the surgery. And if your lymph nodes come back clear, then that means the cancer hasn't spread to your lymph nodes, and your ovaries would be good. And they're so good for your health and your bones and all the things. So you could keep them. And so I was like, okay, I'll do that. Well, I go in for this surgery, and I come out, and I don't know if you've ever had like a really major surgery where you've had to go under, but when you come out of that, like you are not, you're out of it completely. And the first thing that I was told when I came out of surgery was that my ovaries were gone. And that's what I remember. And so the plan going into surgery was like, hey, wait a minute. They were only supposed to take this ovaries if the cancer has spread. So now I'm thinking, holy shit, why did you even wake me up if I'm just going to die? Like if the cancer has spread that far, why would you even wake me up? flurry of confusion. Like I am on a lot of drugs. Like I remember even at one point, the one thing I do remember is asking somebody to hand me my tiara because I was in gown. Like I was like in hospital gown. They're like, I was like, give me my tiara, and they wouldn't do that. But that was like a funny thing that happened when I was under, and then my cousin explains to me, and I'm like looking for her because she's going to tell me what happened. I trust her, right? I don't trust any of these doctors. And I'm looking for her. I'm looking for my person. Like, where are you? And she's like, Amanda, she tells me, and she's like, your surgery took a really long time because they found stage 4 endometriosis. Stage 4. And I was like, endometriosis. I was like, why? I've heard that word before, but I'm like, they were told me a long time ago, there's no way it could be endometriosis. And I didn't know what that meant. And so the days after surgery, I could barely, like, I didn't want to move and do things. I had the IUD, like, still like, in my back, like just all these meds pumping through me. And they were like, you need to go for a walk. You need to do these things before you can leave the hospital. Like you need to have a bowel movement, you need to pass gas, like whatever. So I went reluctantly for these fart walks around the hospital so I could like, have a fart. And I didn't want to. And so the walk I took actually, and it was a really special memory for me. It's with a man that we are no longer in each other's lives, but he was a really big part of that healing journey for me. And the man actually dressed up in a Captain America costume. He did cosplay.
Oh, okay.
Around the hospital. And so that is one of the memorable walks that I took. I didn't know. I was like on so many drugs. I didn't know. My body was sore, right? Those first few moments of standing up after having the hysterectomy, like everything just goes like boom, 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 like shuffles, like in your body. Like, so I was sore, I was achy, like I was tired. And, Captain America wants to take me for a walk in the hospital. And I'm like, fine, like I'll go. And so I'm just like, focused on that and, having fun watching all the nurses and everybody having fun. Look at Captain America taking this, middle-aged lady around the hospital for a little tour. I got home. I was home for about a week. And then I was out with Captain America. We decided we were going to go watch a movie because that was an activity I could do. Mm-hmm. And I got back home, and Captain America was a hero for me that night, literally. My wound opened up from the bottom, and it was horrifying. It was so scary. It was a lot. And like, I know how to react in crisis. I've done a lot of crisis training and doing that. But when it's you and your body and all these things are happening, a lot was going on. And I just yelled out for him. And I said, like, call 911, grab a towel. And he came and he was like, he called 911. I made him do that first. And it was like, apply pressure. And so he was like on his hands and knees, like just holding my belly up kind of, until the ambulance could get there. So with the way that wound worked, unfortunately, like I couldn't, they wouldn't put me in surgery again. So I had to heal from the inside out. And that has literally become like a metaphor a lot for my journey of healing from that inside out. I love that movie too. Like, I can't even coin that. It's not mine. Somebody else. Right. With it. But I had to do a lot of healing from the inside out, and it was a long process because I had to take it easy with my wound. So I wasn't walking. I wasn't doing the things I should be doing as fast because I was still in hospital. But after that, I got home, and like the nurses, they're like, you do need to be going for walks like 3 times a day to get your strength up, just little ones. And so I would go for a walk, and I remember my whole body still being in a lot of pain and just feeling heavy. And I would go and walk. I would make it down to my elevator. I'd walk down and I'd go walk around the fountain in my building. And then I would walk right back upstairs to my apartment. And that would be like a 10-15 minute walk. And that's all I could do. And then I don't know, it just didn't click, right? All these things had happened and a lot of traumatic things had happened to me during these few weeks. But one day I was working and I have a sit-stand desk at home. I'm not at home right now, but I had a sit-stand desk. And I remember standing up and being like, how long have I been standing up for? Like, how long have I actually been standing up for? And I sat down in disbelief because it was finally like after weeks of trauma and just all the excitement and everything. I didn't know what was going on. And I finally was like, could hear my mind think again. I was like, hold on. Like, where is that pain in my lower back? And so I sat down again and I was like, where is it? Because I'm like, I don't get it. And I started setting a timer. And I set a timer for myself. So 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And I made it all the way up to 30 minutes. And I didn't have the lower back pain anymore. And I was like, where is it? Like I couldn't believe it. So this lower back pain had ass for over a decade. I went to my doctor, I went to pain specialists, I went to nerve specialists, and the messaging was all the same from all of those doctors, all of those years, was you just need to lose weight. You you just need to walk and move around and do these things. But back then I couldn't even stand for longer than a few minutes at a time, right? It was horrible. So when I stood without pain, I couldn't believe it. I was like, this was from the endometriosis. I knew I needed this was the source of my pain. And I had been reading up on it and learning about it more. I started joining the Endometriosis Network of Canada. And I was like, this was my pain for all those years. Like I knew I needed my uterus out, had no idea why. And it was my intuition and my body telling me you needed this out so that way you could live. So after that, like that huge pivoting moment, like the last 2 years, I have like, I remember the first time I went for a hike with friends. Like I remember the first time forget even a hike. I remember the first time I just walked around the block. I never done that before. Like I didn't ever even knew that there was a park behind my house because I had never been able to walk around the block before. And so I started walking around the block and then I ended up on a hike with friends. The first time I did that, I was like, I'm on a hike. Like me, like I'm hiking right now. Like I still can't believe it when I do these things. And so then I booked a trip with a friend and we went out west for New Year's Eve in, that 2022, going into 2023. And I was hiking through magical rainforests and taking in scenery that I never thought I would be able to go and do, but I always dreamt of doing it. And then pivot number 3 happened in my life. Then a friend said, you should come to Turkey with me one day. Like come to Turkey and come with me, be here for September. I'm like, how am I going to do that? I have to go back to work in person. And I'm like, I'm not going to go back to work in person. I'm going to work remotely. And I had actually even said that years ago, like in the pandemic when we transitioned to remote work. I said that a long time ago, even then, that I was not going to go back to work in person. And I can't help but wonder if that was the original point of my manifesting starting there, because manifesting has been something that's been going on for years. Friends have always called it a manifesting. They call it a mandatory and a manifesting. I couldn't believe, like, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. So back then I said, I'm going to work remotely. And then cancer and all these things showed up in my life and made this reality. And then I just started finding these other opportunities to work remotely and do all these amazing things. And I never went back to my in-person job. Like I went back once before my surgery to transition my team back in person, and I never went back to in-person after that. And ever since then, I've been traveling the world. I've been working remotely. And my dream was to get to Cappadocia. Even before, when I used to be on the couch, I always wondered I wanted to be in a hot air balloon. but I never knew how I was going to stand up for a whole hot air balloon flight. You have to stand. You can't sit in
Yeah.
the basket. You have to stand. And there was no way I'd be able to do that because I couldn't stand for more than 5 minutes at a time. And so when I made it to Cappadocia, um, and I made it to Turkey, like after I said I was going to be able to do this, I spent 2 months in Greece and Turkey in 2023. And it was like, I'm actually here. Like I am doing what I said I was going to do. I didn't know
Mhm.
how I was going to do it back then, but I just figured out my way. I just said it, I spoke it, I set that aspiration, I set my intentions, I started manifesting it, and it showed up and it delivered.
Wow.
And like even now, like I'm internet went out. I have backup. That's why I was able to get onto this, but I'm in Portugal right now. So I'm like, I'm spending spending a whole month in Portugal just because I'm like, I don't want to be in those Canadian winters. So here I
Yeah.
came.
I
Yeah,
think that's amazing. So, like in retrospect, like that was the cancer was a blessing in disguise, and just being able to catch it is really what set you free. So you got freed from that bunker down of them trying to push the expectation of procreation onto you, and then on top of that, not being tied down to an in-person job, being able to pretty much manifest the life that you really truly wanted,
truly wanted. Yeah.
all from the cancer. So
That's
I think
and
that's
so this
amazing.
is like when I talked to my family doctor about it, and she is like incredibly supportive. Like she always wanted, like she was in my corner
Mm,
a lot. She knew I always wanted the hysterectomy, but she's like, I can't get this for you.
yeah.
As much as I would want, like I can't do this, but like, so then it was like there nothing pushed there and things like that. But through this whole journey, she's been there for me. And I'm not going to say that about that male gynecologist, but after this, because I was like, I would tell her, I was like, cancer is the best thing that ever happened to me,
Mm,
because without that cancer, I wouldn't have gotten that hysterectomy that I wanted for years, and I wouldn't have found out about this endometriosis that was holding me down all these years. Um, so she's actually the one that we're talking with her and doing some counseling and all these things. She's the one that she's like, you need to start sharing and talking. And she's like, I don't know anybody that talks about cancer the way that you do.
mm,
Nobody generally says that. Not a lot of people will say that cancer was a really, really great thing for them. Um,
right.
but because it, and I like, I want to be clear too, cancer was absolutely terrifying to sit with those emotions and like have that. You have a lot to go through and process when you get those words thrown at you, whether it's told to you in a compassionate way or not a compassionate way, which was done in my case. Um, but yeah, in retrospect, it was the best thing that ever happened because I wouldn't, but I also have to give thanks to the endometriosis though too, because without those, it wasn't the cervical cancer symptoms that got me that hysterectomy. It was the symptoms from the endometriosis that led to that. Without those symptoms, that cancer would have gone completely undetected. We only get pap smears every 3 years here in Ontario. And so I've had abnormal ones throughout the years, but I hadn't had one in a while, so it would have been 3 years. And by the time I would have been due for my next screening, and especially because of COVID, like
Mm,
that cancer would have spread too far. That was they. I think they were in a little shock about how fast they were able to catch that cancer.
wow.
Hmm.
So let me ask you, what is the biggest misconception people have about wellness?
The biggest misconception that people have about wellness. That's a really wellness is not, it's not a one size fits all situation. Everybody is on different journeys with their wellness. Like if you had asked me like back when I was looking for wellness at those times of my life, like I was in a really diseased state of addictive behavior. I was a smoker, I was a drinker. So like focusing on wellness back then for me was something totally different than what wellness looks for me to this day of like what I need for it to be in this day in this moment. And I think we can sometimes think that what works for us is going to work for other people. And
Mhm.
that's not the case. So, like, working with one person, I feel like, is not always the answer. I think that you should be working with as many people as you possibly can on the topic, absorb information from other people,
Mhm.
and focus on what it is that you need
Yeah,
for yourself, because it's so different for everybody. So it's
exactly.
not a one size fits all situation. And I think that um, that's a big one, because you think that, oh, if I can do this, you should be able to do it too. But that's not always the case. And, even with, I look at my journey too, like with doctors and the healthcare system, it's not just, oh, get up off your ass and lose weight. Like, it's like, hey, we need to look into like what's going on underneath this, what's going on
Exactly.
underneath this too, right? So I think people can look at things from a very surface level and not dig deeper. And that's, where's the root of where this is coming from to get the wellness that we need.
I absolutely agree. I feel like, especially here, right? It's always
Yeah.
like a pill for one thing, right? To like get rid
Yeah.
of whatever
Mhm.
cure whatever ails you, right? But a lot of
Yeah.
the times, people's for me, I believe that people's health is attached to the traumas. So it's like also something that's going on deep in the mind, because that energy, like it transfers and it has to manifest in one way or another, right? So for some people, it looks like cancer. For some people, it looks like depression. Some people, it's like, they don't eat at all. So they can't gain weight. And some people, so it just, I think for me, I think that it really just depends.
Yeah.
Um, so speaking of that, how do you help others uncover their inner sparkle?
Mm. I love the sparkle, and I love sparkly things like the twinkles.
Me too. It's so
I love
shiny.
it. It's so, if I see like sparkly lights, like I'm just like a magnet. I'm like, hey, see you later. There's twinklies over there. Like I'm going.
Yeah.
Um, I love it. So I think that connecting to our inner kiddo
Mhm.
is super important for finding that inner joy, and finding just like ways to giggle and laugh about stuff, right? Like, even when I think back to like my cancer journey, like laughing about that moment in the hospital where I'm like, oh, somebody please hand me my tiara because I'm wearing my gown. Like, just like ridiculous stuff like that, right? I'm like, how can we find some like ways to like laugh and get through this stuff? But ways that I specifically help people, and um I'm so glad that I'm able. I teamed up a long time ago. I've been offering these workshops now for like, I'd say about 5 years now,
Mhm.
with the Women's Center of Halton in Ontario and Burlington there. And I get to coach. So for years, the only program that I did there was the self-esteem program. So I literally got to spend time with women who were looking for ways to look at themselves differently, looking for ways to, toot their own horns, bring themselves up, getting
Yeah.
themselves out of a situation. So I had really meaningful conversations with women for years. And then during the pandemic, uh, one of the biggest things that started happening for all of us, like I'd say so many of us, was loneliness. And
Yeah.
like for me specifically, I had friends that moved away during the pandemic. A lot of my relationships blew up over the pandemic too. We started realizing who we were jiving with, who we weren't, and like, relationships fell, right? They fell apart. And so I started using this app, Bumble. Like, I was using it for dating, but I went on the Bumble BFF side of it, and I
Mhm.
started swiping for friends and I met um, some really incredible people on the friendship side of it. And so
Yeah.
one of the gals at the work at the women's center was like, I don't know why you're being so selfish and keeping this from the women. And she was like, tell them we should create a workshop on how to make adult friendships. So I started doing a workshop on adult friendships. And now this year they've added on to it more. And it's kind of like following along a lot with my journey. So I get to support people not only with their self-esteem, helping them find adult friendships and what that can look like, but I'm also now supporting women at the center with navigating dating and
Right.
growing their business and networking and finding opportunities to chat with other people and just help their business out. So I get to help people a lot with the wellness side. And I also offer Reiki, and I've helped do a couple of retreats too, which have been really special. Like, so I get to do it. That's why I say I do a charcuterie of different things, because it's nice. I'm finally working in a field where people want to be here and want to be working on themselves. And I want to keep finding more ways to help making wellness accessible for people, because I think that there's a lot of barriers in place with that, and not everybody has access to that. So that's why, like, free, like, I can't be shouting it from the rooftop even more, but because the Women's Center sponsors these can actually be free resources for women that just need a little bit of support. I've had people attend from New York City, Scotland, like all over the
Wow.
world. It's so much fun. They're so much fun. They're great workshops. So
I love that. And you said they're free. So that's something because I'm like, you piqued my interest. I'm like, tell me
yeah,
more.
just come and hang out. You can just come and chat and talk. Like, what
I
is it
love
that we're
that.
learning that day? And it's
So is it
all
all
free,
virtual? Is it virtual?
all virtual. I'm
Or
actually
okay.
the only program. I think I am. I think I'm the only program left at the center that's completely online. All,
Oh,
like, the
wow.
rest of them have all transitioned back to in person, but these ones,
Okay.
they have done really well online, so they've been keeping them.
I
Um,
love that. So they've made it like a foundation of the the program. I think that's so super important because, for one, transportation is not a thing for everyone. And then for two, I think virtually, for people that maybe don't go outside as much or maybe they don't have as much time, it's more convenient. So I love the fact that they did keep that and continue to incorporate it and that you're adding things onto it. Um, can you explain how Reiki and mindfulness can help transform someone's life?
oh my gosh. So when um, Reiki is such a personal journey for a lot of people. Um, I I actually got my level one, oh my gosh, 7 years ago, 7 to 8 years ago.
Mm.
And I think that having that level one, because when you have your level one, you can give Reiki to others. You can all, like, give Reiki to yourself. I very much focused just giving Reiki to myself back then.
Yeah.
And I remember not for a couple of years because I was, and this is so messed up to say, but I was worried back then that I would stop smoking and be healthier. And I wasn't ready for that yet.
Mm,
I wasn't ready for that. So I was like, no, don't. So I disconnected from it for a bit. Interestingly, when I started doing Reiki again, I paired that and I also read the book, How to Stop Smoking. Um, that's when I stopped smoking. And Reiki helped me just fill the time after I had so much time. I had so much time after I stopped smoking. I'm like, what did I used to do with all this time? All I used to do was there and smoke and do nothing, right? And so
exactly.
now I was doing Reiki and I was doing these things. So what Reiki, and so I ended up getting my level two last year, and I was like, okay, I'm ready, and I feel like I've done so much on my healing journey that I'm ready to start sharing it with other people. And so with
Yes.
level two now, I, like, not only can I give Reiki to other people, but I can also send distance Reiki, which
Yeah.
I find really incredible because, like, you can be over there in your part of the world, I can be over here, and I can still send you Reiki. And it's so, like, I can just do those body scans and feel what comes up for you and be like, hey, what's going on here? Why am I feeling this here? What's happening? I love it. So, and even for myself now too, like, I love just going through and doing a body scan and checking in with myself about what is feeling good on my body, what's not feeling good. Maybe I've got some blocked chakras or things that I need to kind of just flow and connect a little bit better. So Reiki can really, really do a lot for your wellness. If you're, and the beauty thing about Reiki is that it's just universal energy. It's not me doing this. Like, it's just universal energy that's flowing through me to that person, or to, like, through me.
Mm,
And it's just going to do whatever you need it to do to help you
yeah.
on your journey. So it feels, and it's so cozy. It feels so good. Yeah.
Yeah. That's one certification that I've paid for but haven't like started yet. So I'm like, my mom is also a Reiki practitioner
Okay.
as well. So I'm like, I love it, but I just haven't done it. And I feel like, you know how when you like have those that inner voice that like procrastinate or makes you procrastinate.
Huh?
Um Actually one of my guests sent me her book. So I brought it here. Yeah, it's about stop how to stop procrastinating.
Oh my
Uh,
God.
yeah, so I'm gonna start reading that because I'm like, man, there's so much stuff that I feel like I've been like not doing, and it's like I don't know why. It's like something stopping me. So usually it's I know that if something is stopping me from like moving forward, it's because of some sort of limiting belief or fear. So now I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, what are we afraid of? Are we
Yeah.
afraid we're gonna like skyrocket? You
Yeah. It's something that you have to unpack. It's totally
Yeah,
something that it's like, why am I squirreling? Why am I not doing this? Why am I
yeah.
not like what's happening here? And it's a mindset. It's
Oh
literally
yeah.
you just have to decide. And then you're
Mhm.
doing it and you're like, why didn't I do this before?
Before,
Well,
yeah,
you weren't
because
in that
it's
vibration before. So of
yeah.
course you weren't doing it because that's not where you were that's not where
You
your
were tuned
vibration is
into
flowing.
that. Yeah, yeah. Abraham Hicks, you gotta
Exactly.
tap in,
Yes.
tune in. Um, in what ways can someone create alignment between their goals and their authentic self?
Okay, so one of the ways that has helped me a lot a lot went on for my journey. So I really started unpacking it myself and I came up with my aim and align framework
Mhm,
that I use. So one of like I love acronyms. Like I kind of grew up on acronyms.
mhm,
So when I walk through an aim and align, like because I feel like everything in my journey or anything that I'm still working on, it's when we talk about mindset, it's like, where am I here? Like, what am I doing? What do I need to be doing? So um, one of the things is awareness is for that. So I'll walk you through just a little bit of aim and align so you know where that acronym is coming from. You can see it on my website too, because I just want people to have this and like pay it
yeah,
like this might be able to be a tool that you can work through. So when I talk about aim, at first I say aspiring. So A is for aspiring, I is for intention, M is for manifesting. Then we've got
mhm.
the and part. So what are we allowing into our lives? What are
Uh,
we noticing? What are we noticing? What is noticing coming up for us? And then D is dedication. What are we dedicating ourselves to right now? So even what you were just going to say, why am I not dedicating myself to Reiki right now?
yeah,
Unpacking that.
yeah.
Okay. So then I jump into this. So now we've got aim and align. So the
Mm,
align part, so the A and align is for awareness because I
mm,
can talk a lot about this in the self-esteem workshop that I do.
mm,
And I made this workshop up even before, was it before the pandemic? And I think it was, but maybe around the same time actually. And
mm.
I do this exercise with dropping the mask because we want to be our most authentic selves as much as we can. So, what's going on underneath ourselves, and what's the mask that we're putting on out for one another? And so, if we're aiming and aligning to be in awareness with ourselves and working through all this, then out there should be matching up with what's going on underneath us too, because it's way easier to show up as our authentic selves than be making something up that just doesn't fucking
That doesn't
resonate
fit with us.
with
Yeah.
who you are.
Hmm.
Possible to show up and even talk and do these things if you're not who you actually are. So
Hmm.
also though to that end, sometimes we have to put a mask on. And
Yeah.
it's like sometimes we have to put a mask on to get ourselves comfortable and be like, hey, this is who I am now. This is what I'm doing.
Hmm.
Like I remember I still have to put a mask on, and I'm talking like, metaphorically,
Yeah.
when I'm like, I have to talk to my inner child or like, the Amanda from 5 years ago, because they still live up in here sometimes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Rent free.
Yeah,
Rent free.
you're not here anymore. I'm like, this is what we're doing now. This is what I'm
Yeah.
like, we are somebody that goes outside. We are somebody that goes for a walk. We are somebody that does this. We are
Yeah.
not somebody that sits inside all day and does nothing. Like
Yeah.
sometimes we need to have those days, sure, but not for 10 days in a row. We don't need to do that anymore. So
sure.
I'm constantly having those chats, but sometimes we have to put a mask on to grow into who we are too. So that's like the awareness part of that piece. And then the rest of the align is liaise. So like, who are you liaising with? Who's your network all about?
Yes.
I is the integrate. How do we integrate everything that we're doing? Is there pieces that I should be integrating that I'm not? It's kind of like a puzzle piece. And then the G is gratitude. I think that's a big part of our journeys, is that we do need to give gratitude for where we've been, where we're going, what's happening. And then the N part is noticing. Sorry, no, N is nurturing. Nurturing.
Mm,
I already said noticing. That was part of the and, but nurturing. And when I think of nurture, I'm like a huge fan of alpacas, because
mm,
I think we have to like nurture ourselves, and alpacas and llamas, they're just so like they're cuddly, like
mm.
they look like they want to be cuddled. They don't want to be. Um, Sometimes they want to be like pet and whatever else. But what
Yeah.
I like about them, and I think a big part of nurturing ourselves, is recognizing what's not for us anymore either. And so alpacas and llamas, as a lot of people know, will spit back. They'll spit back if they don't like something. So I'm like, we should be doing that too. If we don't like something in our lives, or something is not easy or not feeling right, we need to spit back and be like, no, this isn't for me anymore. How am I taking care of myself if I'm not showing up for myself and communicating my needs and what I don't like? And alpacas will they'll make that very known. I'm just going to spit back and be like, I don't like this. So that's that nurturing piece of it. So when we talk about awareness, like I tie that right into that aim and align framework, because like it's tricky to have that awareness without some of those other pieces of that. But that's how you can align with that. Then there's just one of the thousands of different ways that people talk about a lot of the same stuff. But it's just what I use for my
I love
journey.
that. I
Mm-hmm.
definitely love that. And you said those acronyms can be found on your website,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. If you pull it up, I have them right on there, and you can see all the symbols.
Mm,
I'm a big person of acronyms and symbols. So like each of those aim and align, each has its own symbol. And so whenever I'm out there walking around or doing things, I'll see one of those. And I
wow.
take that as a cue of like, shit, I need to be working on that. Like I'm
Mm,
not doing that right now, or I am doing that. And thank you for showing me that this is what I'm attracting right now, and this is what I'm on the path that I'm in. Like one day, I think
yeah.
I saw like 4 rainbows in a row, and I'm like, okay, I get it. I know I'm
Yeah, like,
manifesting.
I'm in alignment. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah. But
like
I think there's something so powerful about that, right? When you're actually walking and you're in the path that you're supposed to be, right? What's meant for you and what your soul purpose is, you start seeing more synchronicities, and I think it makes it easier to attract that feeling of gratitude, right? Because
yeah,
when you're actually in that feeling of gratitude, that's when more stuff starts coming, right?
yeah,
It literally starts. It's like a windfall, and it just
I
keeps
know,
happening and happening and
happening.
happening, and things just keep working and working and working better and better and better for you. So I definitely love that. You're like, yes.
It totally does. It
I've been
really.
experiencing it for like the last week or so. Like even the things that have been like the most traumatic that I felt like have been like, the end all of me. They actually are, it so happens that they were blessings in disguise.
Yeah,
So when you can actually reframe and look at it that way, like it puts you in a different frequency. So the old frequency that I used to exist in, to where I was just like, man, like my life sucks. Why did this have to happen to me? It's not fair. I'm such a great person. Everything always, goes against me, but in fact it doesn't. Like everything is pushing me towards like something better.
that's right.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that's like a big piece of that mindset too that starts to happen, right? Because when we start thinking in that depletion way of like, I can't, this isn't working out, it's not working out, it
Right.
becomes a big hamster wheel
Oh,
of
yeah.
this is your thought process and this is what's always going to be happening, because guess what? You're not getting off the wheel. And it's
Exactly.
not going to shift and change until you believe that you can get off of
Exactly.
it and you can do different things. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's yeah, there's another symbol. I should have incorporated a hamster wheel somehow into I'm in a line. Yeah.
I'm okay. I wanted to just real quick. I've never seen auras before. but
Mhm.
yours is like between like a vibrant yellow and a white. Like I'm looking, I'm like, am I losing my mind? Like what is going on right here? So that's great. Like I'm not I'm gonna tell my mom because she reads them, like she tells me and I'm looking at her like, okay, mom.
Please connect with me and learned. Yes.
It's great. I'm like, wow, I didn't know I could do that. If I gave you three words right now, joy,
Mhm.
strength, and love, what personal stories or thoughts immediately come to mind?
Joy, strength, and love. Hmm. Well, like when I just think back about this entire journey, that liaise part in my aim and align, and who you surround yourself with. I have, I, I can't help but smile, but when I think about the people that are on this journey with me and stayed on this journey with me. And sometimes friendships shift and change, and sometimes family relationships shift and change. And it doesn't mean that we don't still love each other. There's not forgiveness in our hearts and all of those things. But I have a lot of gratitude for all of the connections that I've had in my life. I have a lot of gratitudes for the ones that I know are going to come into it still.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, we have so much fun together too. Like I just have a lot of really great memories. And any of the versions of me that have been there, those are the people that I absolutely needed at those versions of me. So they spark all of those things: joy, strength, and love. So yeah,
Wow,
the liaise
that's
part. Yeah.
I love that. If a listener wrote their own life mission statement, what three questions should they ask themselves first?
What three questions should they ask themselves? I always go back to just the basics. Sometimes I think we can overcomplicate things.
I agree.
Um, we totally can. So I'm not gonna get really deep here because like even with like this past summer when I was I remember years ago, like I was like, I need to see if AmandaFesting.com is available, and it was. And so I told my cousin, like, I was like, get that site for me. Like I need it when I was away in like Greece and when we're going through things and challenging, I think we just need to like sit back and just get super basic. And I'll even add more to them. It's like the who, what, why, how. Like that's just as simple as it needs to get to just start processing things. Um, the other, and again, these are acronyms. And this is not an acronym I came up with, but an acronym I use a lot in my workshops is the THINK acronym. And I feel like I can solve anything that comes up by just using this acronym. And have you heard of this one before? Have you heard of the THINK acronym?
I
Yeah.
have. I don't remember what it
Is
stands
it
for, but
true? Like, and that's when I'm like, I can't just think of three questions, but I'm like, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? And is it kind? And so I
yeah,
use that acronym a lot if I'm going through a conflict with someone or something. And I do believe that conflict is a problem to be solved.
yeah,
If there's a thought that's on remuneration or repeat in my brain, I'm going through that. I'm talking about myself, how I'm talking to myself, how I'm talking to other people, all of those things. So I use that think acronym a lot, and I just go back to the basics of like who, what, where, why, how.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
And then I just want to do a closing reflection. What is the most powerful piece of advice you've received, and how did it impact your life?
You know, when I was at near the beginning of my cancer journey, there was somebody else in my life that just validated how hard it was to say the word cancer. Like she validated that for me, and she's like, I've been there, I've done that. And I don't even think it was like advice, but more so just support and just
Yeah,
being there and saying, like not sugarcoating the things, like just waiting is going to be hard. These are hard things. It's
Mhm.
the worst part.
Mhm.
And just being real about it. So I think, and that's where that authenticity came in. And I don't like to fluff things up too much if I can just get super clear into the basics. But I think just holding space for people is really good. The other one that's coming to mind, and I remember a friend said this. I was spreading this like wildflower back then. She was saying to lean into the easy, and like just I love that phrase, like lean into the easy. And so just doing things that felt right, felt good, um, just those kind of things. So again, I think that that just ties back to like that liaise part too, right? Who are
Mhm.
you spending time with, and who's your in your network? Because when you need support and when you're going through the things, you're going to be looking to the people around you for that support and that guidance. So if I didn't have those people in my life, my journey would have been very different and a very different experience through this. So look around to like who your support systems are for sure.
I love that. And I like that. I've never heard that before, but it definitely does make more sense. Lean into the easy.
Yeah.
Uh, a lot of
She,
people tend to flee from that, you know. I know at one point I did, you know, because it almost seems like a setup. If it's too easy, you're like, no, 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 I'm supposed to struggle. Like things are supposed to be difficult in my life, but
it's
it's
just too
like,
hard.
no.
Right? It's supposed to be easy. Like I'm like that friend is she's so wise. Like nobody talks the way that she does. She's I've had the pleasure of running a retreat with her too. She's an incredible soul.
Yes.
But I love it too. It makes sense for a lot of stuff. Even when it comes down to dating, like leaning into that easy. Like when it comes down to like how we talk to ourselves, what we're doing, the work that we're doing. If it starts to feel like I don't like this. Why is it feeling icky? Like just it should
Just,
feel easy.
yeah,
And that's, that goes back to those Abraham Hicks teachings too. It should flow
yeah,
easily. It should feel
exactly,
easy. Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm.
Um, how do you want your work to be remembered 10 years from now?
I really want to make wellness as accessible as I can for people. So when somebody looks up AmandaFesting I want people like I really want to be part of this really big movement that is going to help people make choices for themselves and start finding ways to let some really beautiful magic happen in their lives.
Yeah,
So I want to make wellness as accessible as I can for people.
I love
That's what
that.
I want to
I love
do.
that. And then do you have any like final words for the audience, like any advice or recommendations or anything that you feel like could add some value today that someone might possibly need to hear?
Hmm. Um, I think that just goes back to my aim and align framework. I really do. Like I'm like there's so much with that aim and align piece. It's on my website. Go and have a look through it. It's right there for you to just consider like how you can start making some shifts in your life and unpack each of those things because there's a lot to unpack with each of those and there's areas of your life that you can kind of look at and just start seeing what you want to shine a light on too.
I love that.
Be a little bit of a detective for yourself as you're doing this. And yes, stuff will start to move for you really quickly when you just start to think differently about it. So shifting that perspective is, gosh, it's everything. Is everything to shift that perspective. Hmm.
I agree.
Yeah.
Um, well, Amanda, I want to thank you so much for making time today for this interview. Thank you so very much for sharing your story. And you've not only clarified a lot of things for me, but gave me some new things to think about as far as like when I get ready to go back into my journal and start doing some more shadow work. And for the audience listening, I want to thank you guys for tuning in today. Please make sure you let us know in the comments what was your biggest takeaway from this episode and what ways are you prioritizing your wellness? What tools are you currently actively using? And what was your biggest takeaway? I think I just said that already. As always, make sure you guys smash that like button, Don't forget to subscribe with the notification bell on. And check out Amanda's website at www.amandafesting.com. And until next time, okay, bye.